Day 662, Wednesday, June 4th. Ezekiel 42 and 43. Ezekiel 42 1-20, NKJV. Then he brought me out into the outer court by the way toward the north, and he brought me into the chamber which was opposite the separating courtyard, and which was opposite the building toward the north. Facing the length which was 100 cubits, the width was 50 cubits, was the north door. Opposite the inner court of 20 cubits, and opposite the pavement of the outer court, was gallery against gallery in 3 stories. In front of the chambers toward the inside was a walk 10 cubits wide, at a distance of 1 cubit, and their doors faced north. Now the upper chambers were shorter, because the galleries took away space from them more than from the lower and middle stories of the building. For they were in 3 stories, and did not have pillars like the pillars of the courts. Therefore the upper level was shortened more than the lower and middle levels from the ground up. And a wall which was outside ran parallel to the chambers, at the front of the chambers toward the outer court. Its length was 50 cubits. The length of the chambers toward the outer court was 50 cubits, whereas that facing the temple was 100 cubits. At the lower chambers was the entrance on the east side, as one goes into them from the outer court. Also there were chambers in the thickness of the wall of the court toward the east, opposite the separating courtyard, and opposite the building. There was a walk in front of them also, and their appearance was like the chambers which were toward the north. They were as long and as wide as the others, and all their exits and entrances were according to plan. And corresponding to the doors of the chambers that were facing south, as one enters them, there was a door in front of the walk, the way directly in front of the wall toward the east. Then he said to me, The north chambers and the south chambers, which are opposite the separating courtyard, are the holy chambers, where the priests who approach the Lord shall eat the most holy offerings. There they shall lay the most holy offerings, the grain offering, the sin offering, and the trespass offering, for the place is holy. When the priests enter them, they shall not go out of the holy chamber into the outer court, but there they shall leave their garments in which they minister, for they are holy. They shall put on other garments, then they may approach that which is for the people. Now when he had finished measuring the inner temple, he brought me out through the gateway that faces toward the east, and measured it all around. He measured the east side with the measuring rod, 500 rods by the measuring rod all around. He measured the north side, 500 rods by the measuring rod, all around. He measured the south side, 500 rods by the measuring rod. He came around to the west side and measured 500 rods by the measuring rod. He measured it on the 4 sides. It had a wall all around, 500 cubits long and 500 wide, to separate the holy areas from the common. Ezekiel 43 1-27, NKJV. Afterward he brought me to the gate that faces toward the east. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel came from the way of the east. His voice was like the sound of many waters, and the earth shone with his glory. It was like the appearance of the vision which I saw, like the vision which I saw when I came to destroy the city. The visions were like the vision which I saw by the river Chebar, and I fell on my face. And the glory of the Lord came into the temple by way of the gate which faces toward the east. The Spirit lifted me up and brought me into the inner court, and behold, the glory of the Lord filled the temple. Then I heard him speaking to me from the temple, while a man stood beside me. And he said to me, Son of man, this is the place of my throne and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever. No more shall the house of Israel defile my holy name, they nor their kings, by their harlotry or with the carcasses of their kings on their high places, when they set their threshold by my threshold, and their doorpost by my doorpost, with a wall between them and me. They defiled my holy name by the abominations which they committed. Therefore I have consumed them in my anger. Now let them put their harlotry and the carcasses of their kings far away from me, and I will dwell in their midst forever. Son of man, describe the temple to the house of Israel, that they may be ashamed of their iniquities, and let them measure the pattern. And if they are ashamed of all that they have done, make known to them the design of the temple and its arrangement, its exits and its entrances, its entire design and all its ordinances, all its forms and all its laws. Write it down in their sight, so that they may keep its whole design and all its ordinances, and perform them. This is the law of the temple. The whole area surrounding the mountaintop is most holy. Behold, this is the law of the temple. These are the measurements of the altar in cubits. The cubit is 1 cubit and a handbreadth, the base 1 cubit high and 1 cubit wide, with a rim all around its edge of 1 span. This is the height of the altar, from the base on the ground to the lower ledge, 2 cubits. The width of the ledge, 1 cubit. From the smaller ledge to the larger ledge, 4 cubits, and the width of the ledge, 1 cubit. The altar hearth is 4 cubits high, with 4 horns extending upward from the hearth. The altar hearth is 12 cubits long, 12 wide, square at its 4 corners. The ledge, 14 cubits long and 14 wide on its 4 sides, with the rim of half a cubit around it, its base, 1 cubit all around, and its steps faced toward the east. And he said to me, Son of man, thus says the Lord God, these are the ordinances for the altar on the day when it is made, for sacrificing burnt offerings on it, and for sprinkling blood on it. You shall give a young bull for a sin offering to the priests, the Levites, who are of the seed of Zadok, who approach me to minister to me, says the Lord God. You shall take some of its blood, and put it on the 4 horns of the altar, on the 4 corners of the ledge, and on the rim around it. Thus you shall cleanse it and make atonement for it. Then you shall also take the bull of the sin offering, and burn it in the appointed place of the temple, outside the sanctuary. On the 2nd day you shall offer a kid of the goats without blemish for a sin offering, and they shall cleanse the altar, as they cleansed it with the bull. When you have finished cleansing it, you shall offer a young bull without blemish, and a ram from the flock without blemish. When you offer them before the Lord, the priests shall throw salt on them, and they will offer them up as a burnt offering to the Lord. Every day for 7 days you shall prepare a goat for a sin offering. They shall also prepare a young bull and a ram from the flock, both without blemish. 7 days they shall make atonement for the altar and purify it, and so consecrate it. When these days are over, it shall be, on the 8th day and thereafter, that the priest shall offer your burnt offerings and your peace offerings on the altar, and I will accept you, says the Lord God. Daily Deep Dive, the UCG reading plan states, Ezekiel now leaves the immediate temple area, and proceeds through the inner north gate to the outer courtyard, and over to a 100 times 50 cubit, 3-story building on the west side of the gate. Verses 1 to 3. This building, and the corresponding one next to the inner south gate, are said to be dining chambers where the priests eat the holy offerings. Verse 13. They have an interesting terraced construction, where each floor is narrower than the one below it. Verses 5 to 6. The rooms on the ground floor are said to have a 10-cubit wide indoor corridor in front of them. Verse 4. The upper floors are each set back to allow for rooftop patios, outdoor corridors in front of the 2nd and 3rd floor rooms. The 1st and 2nd floor rooms are the same size, but the 3rd floor rooms are smaller. Verses 5 to 6. At the end of this chapter, Ezekiel is taken through the outer east gate to measure the enclosed temple district. Notice these measurements are using the measuring rod of 6 cubits. So rather than being the 500 cubits per side of the temple complex, this is a 3,000 cubit per side holy area. Verse 20. The word cubits in the NKJV is italicized in verse 20. The KJV translators correctly used reeds, as specifically stated in the previous verses. This is describing a walled area 1.2 miles square, probably of carefully landscaped parkland, with the temple complex in the middle of it. This gives a buffer zone of almost exactly 1/2 mile between the outside walls of the temple complex and the walls around its grounds. If this outer wall is also the one we saw in Ezekiel 45, then it is about 12 feet thick and 12 feet high. What purpose might this serve? The parkland surrounding the temple city could be more than just open space. It could serve as an area for tents or booths during the pilgrimage feasts, especially the Feast of Tabernacles. If so, this thick wall could house much-needed bathroom facilities, or supply other indoor needs for the large numbers of visitors. Ezekiel 43. Returning to the east gate, Ezekiel is now given a glimpse of the awesome and thrilling arrival of Jesus Christ, identified by Ezekiel as the coming of the glory of the Lord to this newly completed temple, a scene that reminded him of the visions he had recorded earlier in his book. Verses 1 to 5. See Ezekiel 1:10. Ezekiel 10:18-19 had specifically mentioned God leaving the temple, after which it was destroyed. Here we have God returning again. Verses 6-12 contain one of several sets of warning and instruction from God about what he expects the Israelites' behavior to be in this future temple, in contrast to their abominable behavior in the one upon which he had recently brought destruction. Altar of burnt offering. The bronze altar of burnt offering in Solomon's temple was 20 times 20 cubits. 2 Chronicles 4:1. Much bigger than the portable one for the tabernacle, which was 5 times 5 × 3 cubits. See Exodus 27:1-2. The altar Ezekiel sees is similar, but it is either more elaborate or simply related in greater detail. 4 vertical parts are described: a 1 cubit deep gutter for catching the blood of the sacrifices, a 2 cubit high lower ledge, an upper ledge 4 cubits above that, and a 4 cubit high structure around the hearth for a total above ground height of 10 cubits, with horns extending above that at the 4 corners. Each succeeding level seems to have a 1 cubit setback associated with it, the upper level hearth being 12 times 12 cubits, and increasing by 2 cubits each level to apparently 16 times 16 cubits at the ground level, with a 1 cubit wide gutter below that. Steps for accessing the hearth are located on the east side, verse 17. The altar is massive, it is taller than a 2-story building. The base of the hearth is more than 12 feet above the ground, and more than 600 square feet. With the sides of the hearth being 8 feet tall, it is likely that doors are built into the sides of the altar for placing meat and tending to the fires and ashes, though none are specifically mentioned. The chapter concludes with a description of the purification offerings for the altar, verses 18 to 27. As in the days of the tabernacle, the process will take 7 days. See Exodus 29, 3537. End.